I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is the full Board of Education meeting on Wednesday, June 10th, 2020. Thank you for being here tonight. It's a wonderful summer evening. I think the rain might hold off, but we'll see. Why don't we start the meeting by saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sue, will you please take the roll call?
Here.
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 Here. Here.
Here.
Here. And Sue, have we been properly posted with the media?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. This is our first meeting back in person since COVID-19 had broken out, and we've been having our meetings virtually. We did put our toes in the water last week with some meetings too, and we had our finance and facilities meeting in person too. So we're starting to see what it's like to get back to normal. It's good to see everyone. We are practicing social distancing though tonight. We have guests in the other room in 109, and they can see us via closed circuit TV. And when we have a chance for our citizens to address us, Sue, will the process be you'll go and get the person and bring them in here, or will they be speaking from the other room?
I can go get them.
Okay.
Because it's a employee of the room.
Okay. All right. So we'll see how this meeting goes. I'd like to start with an inspirational moment. And this is something that Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote. The purpose of life is not to be happy. It is to be useful, to be honorable, to be compassionate, to have it make some difference that you have lived and lived well. Ralph Waldo Emerson. I like that piece a lot. And you'll see why in a little bit. Tonight we do not have any bright lights, but we do have a couple of recognitions. Sharon Thede, will you please introduce the new the new principal of Hadfield?
Oh, it's on the way.
So good to see everyone again. I am super excited to announce Mr. Mike Elliott as the next principal of Hadfield Elementary School. As you recall, we approved his candidacy last month's board meeting. So Mr. Elliott has a strong understanding of social and emotional learning frameworks and knows that all forms of behavior are methods of communication that need to be addressed. In addition to student achievement, we want students to be happy and excited when they come to school, fostering a love of learning and a safe environment. So with that, I'd like to welcome Mr. Elliott.
I'm not sure if I'm allowed to speak.
Oh, absolutely.
A couple of things. First
20
of all,
minutes.
I really want to sincerely thank you for this opportunity. It's a tremendous situation for my family and myself. My wife's the superintendent of the Greenfield School District. Both administrators, we kind of know how that goes. I've got two children. My daughter's 24. She's a theater arts graduate from UW-Eau Claire, and she had a stage managing job until all this happened, and so she's been kind of moved back home with us. My son's headed to Eau Claire to be a music teacher. Orchestra, violin, viola. He's a runner, a swimmer. So I kind of feel like I'm coming back home because in 1987, when I was a freshman at Carroll, my very first ever experience in education was visiting a classroom at Prairie Elementary a fourth grade classroom. I was 18 years old, scared to death, not sure what I was doing, but I'm back here. So like Sharon said, I believe that all families have assets. I believe that all students have assets. They should be valued. I believe that schools should be viewed as a community and a welcoming and safe place. That's something that I hold very strongly, that I want people to feel like they can come to us for help, and that everybody's accepted, and that we all work together for the best children. Everybody needs or deserves an opportunity to reach their personal excellence. That's something that I feel very strongly about, and I will never stop fighting for kids and for families. Thank you very much.
Welcome, Mike.
Thank you. Take care. I'm excited.
We do have a second person to recognize this evening, and I'm going to have the honor of doing that, but I'm also going to have, I'm sure, my fellow board members joining in. And that is to honor the 12 years of service that Todd Gray has given to this district. And you recall the piece that I read in the beginning? Mm-hmm. Yep. And I chose that because I thought of you, Todd. You are honorable, you're compassionate, and you've made a huge difference in this district. And whatever you do in the future, you're going to continue to make a huge difference. And we thank you for that. I'd like to start by talking a little bit about some of the differences that you've made. And I'm sure my fellow board members will also have items that they're going to talk about of your accomplishments. And when we first hired you, Todd, our focus was on your financial acumen. We needed to have someone in this district with those financial skills that you brought here. And we thought you'd be a little crazy because you were the only person who interviewed for the superintendency that said, I want to take on this OPEB issue. We're like, who's going to take this on? But you did. And we came to a settlement with a very difficult issue that made us whole, and even a little extra. I remember when I first got on the board, we didn't have much of a surplus fund balance. And that we've gotten up to a healthy level. A lot of hard work, a lot of due diligence over the years, and you're leaving this district in a much better financial position than when you left. So that's why we hired you. I mean, that was the primary need at the time. You're the right person at the right time, but there's so much more that you've done, a whole bunch more that you've done. Not enough time. Well, I guess we could make this a 4 or 5 hour meeting if you guys would like. But I'm going to name a few, and there's too many to list. But I remember when we started out on our dual language program, and Cynthia Gannon was coming forth, and it was bilingual at that time. But eventually, we got to the dual language program, and that has spread throughout our district now. That is being offered to not only children who are from Hispanic families, but from really virtually any family can join this. And there's a high demand for our students to be speaking 2 languages proficiently at the end of 5th grade. You gave that a chance, you nurtured that, you grew that, and that's grown into our seal of biliteracy. As these students continue on and go into high school, they have a chance to be one of the few in the Midwest to receive this by being proficient in 2, sometimes 3 or 4 languages. I mean, some of these students, as you know, are just unbelievable. What a fantastic opportunity. STEM. Wow. That seems like so long ago now. We started STEM. What an unbelievable opportunity for our students to learn in a different way. And this is before STEM was popular. You know, now everyone talks about it. And then there's the conversion to STEAM and all that going on. But your support in getting that going, and the charter school, the engineering charter school, some of the students continue on. I mean, I think as the kids graduate out of STEM, they're well prepared, to do anything they want. But some of them go on to one of the best academies in the whole state of Wisconsin, the Engineering Academy. We have some of the best scores in the whole state. Those kids are so incredibly smart and so talented, and that's part of your vision. Waukesha won. I remember that as kind of having some controversy. Should we be doing iPads? Should we not be doing iPads? Do we really need to have kids have electronic devices in front of them all day long, Where would we be the last few months if we hadn't started that under your leadership? Was it 7 years ago?
Oh, it's more than that. It was, I want to say 2010 or 11. At least it was.
And your memory's better than mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've been doing it for quite a while.
It's a long time. What an impact. Impacting every single student, impacting how we deliver instruction. And there's a team of people behind you. You've selected those people. You've formed your team. And I know you don't give much credit to yourself, and you give your credit away to your team. And you've done that many, many times. 4-year-old kindergarten. That was really a very interesting partnership that we've formed with many entities in the public to help our education get to our youngest of the young. It built really strong relationships with our community. Another example of building strong relationships with our community was to get the turf fields in at our high schools. Hartle Field and CMH joined in too. We didn't pay for CMH, but but forming those strong relationships, meeting with the people in the public, and getting that to all come together so that we could all benefit the children again today. Many, many children benefiting from that day in and day out. I'm only going to do one more, so I got to save some things for you guys. I have to talk about the referendum. That was a huge accomplishment. Impacts every school, improves the safety. Our middle schools are all under construction. South's all under construction. Huge improvements in those buildings. But that was being driven by the safety of our students, which is, you're always thinking about people. Always thinking about people. I'm going to do one more fact on the referendum. Sorry, guys, I need one more. One more fact on the referendum. It passed with a 66% approval in a community that is very frugal and really wants to make sure their money is spent well. So that showed a lot of confidence that the community has in us, and you are leading that. And one more thing that I wanted to add that I just thought of, people are always at the heart of your decision, and you have worked very hard to keep our staff employed. There's been some very tough decisions to make, which programs to keep, how to rearrange things. You've had, again, wonderful, competent team members in your cabinet and other positions to help you with those decisions on a regular basis. But I don't, was there one person maybe laid off in your 12 years?
I think this last
One?
year we had one that we couldn't find a position for. We'd have people on layoff list, but we'd bring them right back because we, with retirements and resignations and so on. But
that speaks volumes.
I think it was
The
important.
emphasis is in the classroom and with the people we have.
Yeah.
That speaks volumes. Okay, guys, I'm done. I'll open it up to my fellow board members. Diane.
I put together a tribute of a different sort. As we all know, the board has been totally immersed in the process of searching for a new superintendent. And many of us delved into the 488 comments that were a chance for our teachers and community members to be able to say something about what they saw in terms of our current superintendent that they wanted to see in our next superintendent. And I pulled just a sampling of those kinds of comments that I'd like to share at this point. So, comment number 132. Dr. Gray, along with his team, have done a fantastic job in the school district of Waukesha. He definitely has shown his commitment to our community and a desire to make the school district of Waukesha a home for everyone with any ability. I hope we can find someone who shares his same values and respect for the staff, students, parents, and community members. We're always looking for themes. And there are three that I pulled that fit into a theme category. Comment 360. As an educator, I've always felt respected and appreciated by Dr. Gray. It's difficult to express how much this means. Teachers work really hard and care so much. Dr. Gray knows this and acknowledges it regularly. His "Be the Tortoise" message resonates and establishes a strong foundation from which we can continue to build, grow, and prosper. I hope our next superintendent recognizes the commitment and potential of our district. I hope they listen and respond, as well as Dr. Gray has throughout his tenure. Related, comment 452. Dr. Gray was excellent at recognizing the load that teachers carry and reminding us to be the tortoise and take things one step at a time. Someone who appreciates the work teachers do while inspiring them and encouraging them to always improve to meet student needs as he did would be a great asset to the district. Comment 459. I always felt Todd was approachable and truly cared about the students, staff, and community. He encouraged us to be the tortoise in an often busy world. We need a superintendent that genuinely connects with staff and students. I think you can see the three comments that I wanted to create, why I wanted to create a Todd's Tortoise team for the 2020 Waukesha Education Foundation Walk and Wellness Fair that didn't happen because of COVID. But definitely that theme is one that has to be honored and recognized in terms of, a tribute to you. Okay, three more comments. Comment 375. We love the weekly emails from Dr. Gray. Hearing information directly from him kept everyone in touch with him and what was going on. Comment 378. Look for someone who truly wants to serve the unique district of Waukesha. Someone like Todd Gray that recognizes the challenges and celebrations of this district. Someone that doesn't have their own agenda and can sit back for a while to learn what works well before trying to change everything. And let me close with comment 82, part of it, because there's a really long quote. I believe it is so important that the superintendent is not only knowledgeable in how to run a district, but invested in the staff, students, and families within the district. Having his or her support at various events throughout our district is paramount to staff and student morale. It's a trickle-down effect. If he or she is approachable, visible, knowledgeable, and supportive, one would hope those he or she employs and has on his or her team will also be invested. And that comment closes after a lot of ... here. Thank you to Todd and Karen Gray for all their support and presence during their time at the helm in the school district of Waukesha. Happy retirement.
Oh, that's nice. Thank you.
So you can have the comments.
Okay.
They're legit.
Yes,
They're
Bill.
quotes.
They're legit. Bill.
Yeah. I probably have a slightly different way I'm going to present this, nothing unusual. I think all the comments that you're going to be sharing, or you started sharing, are going to be very much to my heart as well. But I'm going to reflect back at the first time I ever talked to Todd. When we were in the interview process, I had to miss the first interview we had with Todd because I was making a presentation someplace that night. And I remember calling him the next morning. You're probably still in Oshkosh at that time, right? And I don't even remember what the questions were. We had I asked some pretty specific questions and things like, where are you with curriculum? You're a finance guy and stuff like that. But the reality was, when it was all done with that, I really already felt a connection with Todd. Mm-hmm. That's the way he is. It's easy to get connected with. And I think that started what I think of as 12 years of very positive experience with Todd. Another thought came to my mind. I don't even remember if it's still up there. I've seen it for so many years hanging on the wall over there and the other down the hall. One of the things that was always up on the wall with this district was, you'll like working here. And Todd, I think you helped capitalize on that, because I think a lot of people like working here. I know I get that feedback from principals, from teachers when I talk to them. They like working here, and you're a big part of that, Todd. Congratulations.
Yeah, Greg.
That's good. First of all, Todd, thank you for the financial stability that the district now has that obviously we didn't have when you walked in the door. That sets the future superintendent as well as students, residents, staff, the community in a really good position. Also, thank you for your collaboration amongst area superintendents. Obviously, you were elected to leadership roles, not only locally, but also at the state level, which signifies all the qualities that people look for when they look for a superintendent. Thank you for your countless hours of dedication during the passage of the recent referendum, which Joe already talked about. And probably one of the most important things to me, thank you for navigating all of us through the current pandemic, which is unprecedented and something you could have never planned for. None of us could have, but we made it, and thank you for everything you've done for that. Best wishes as you transition. Something tells me it's not going to be retirement, and I wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you, Ray.
Yes, Corey.
Thank you. Dr. Gray, I've always been fascinated by great leaders, and I've known many over the years. What I've come to conclude is almost all great leaders are just born that way. They're inherently good communicators, and more importantly, they're inherently good listeners. They make sure they set a good example. They're humble. They're hard workers. But the truly great leaders I've known take those traits and all those things that everybody else mentioned and use it as a starting point. I have had the opportunity to know you as a parent of children in the district, a parent on the PTO, a parent with a spouse with a spouse as an employee in the district, and then as a board member. Every time I've dealt with you or heard about you, those things were consistently evident in you. I've never seen you or heard about you losing your temper. Whenever you are tasked with a problem, you have a solution, usually at hand. If you don't, you'll say, you know what, I'll find it. And you built a good team. I would say a great team. What truly great leaders also recognize is they stand on the shoulders of those who came before them. I didn't know the previous superintendent, but I have a pretty good idea of what you walked into. Truly great leaders, they realize that their job is to make things better. And you did that. You did it over 12 years. Superintendent of the 7th largest school district of, I think, more than 400 districts in the state of Wisconsin is a huge job. You were held to an impossible standard. You should be perfect. That's what we want you to be. Like a football coach of an NFL football coach. Yeah. We want the undefeated season. Like an Olympic gymnast, we want a perfect 10. That's the standard you've been held to. It's impossible. But if, how do you quantify 12 years? Your win record is fantastic. You've gotten as close to a perfect 10 as you can imagine. I think is possible. So I'm grateful for all that. What I'm most grateful for, though, is that truly great leaders realize not only when they walk into a situation, they're standing on the shoulders of the person that, for better or for worse, came before them, but they realize that the person following them are going to stand on their shoulders. So you got the school district of Waukesha to a level that made us shine, that all those things the other board members and the next ones we'll talk about, but you left us in a spot for the new superintendent to walk into and just shine. So that, of the many things mentioned, I think will be your legacy. So congratulations on your retirement. We're sad to see you go, but some other lucky folks are going to get you. So good luck.
Thank you. My wife might disagree with the good listener thing, but the rest I like.
Karen?
Well, I echo all that my board members are raving about you tonight.
But what stands out to me the most is that my children got to experience all of their education with you being the leader. So our family has benefited, I believe, the most because they've went through the 4K program and STEM and the academies and the dual enrollment. And the a little bit of Avid, but did I say STEM? I'm not sure. All of those my kids got to experience, and so you made it a better place for all the kids, and I'm truly grateful because of the leadership you've had for mine. And other people have said, asked me about the you being the superintendent and how's it going to be without Todd, with the new one. I'm like, I don't know. All I've ever known is time with Todd. I don't even know how that's going to be. So I've been pretty spoiled to have you as a leader as well as for our family. So thank you on behalf of all the families that you've reached.
Thanks, Karen.
Yeah, Pat?
Todd, I don't have a lot of comments tonight. I must have misread Joe's email. I thought this was going to be a roast, so my comments
Okay, you can turn up the
are going to
heat,
work out
Pat.
tonight. But like I said, I already talked to you about how grateful I am that you were here. I've been here 15 years. You've been here for 12 of them. It's been a fantastic 12 years. I think that we are really grateful. I am for sure about everything that you've done for the district and for me, and just sad to see you leave. But thanks for everything you've done.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, Kurt?
Mr. Gray, we go back. I think I want to start out with speaking to your integrity. You're a man of very high integrity, and I don't know of anyone who's ever felt that you changed what you told someone based on who they were. You always, if you told one board member one thing, you'd hear the same thing. So we never had to worry about that. And the other thing is that you did treat every board member like they counted. And the other thing I'd like to say about is your passion for kids. You have, if there's one person we could count on in this district that did his best to try and help kids that needed help at the top, it was you. And the educators, the teachers, they counted on being able to reach you if they had to. And you usually responded with some big leadership decision of some type and say, hey, we got to fix this problem. The other thing I think is a real excellent trait is your ability to delegate and foster the people that report to you in that chain of command. Those are all very obvious traits that you displayed time and time again. And I think we've gone through 3 HR people, 4 business managers. One thing I'll say about you is you look to get the best people and you try to help them grow. I think most people think we have the best business manager in the state, we've got the best student services person in the state, the best technology, and the best HR and curriculum and instruction. There is nobody who can find a weakness in our staff. Then there's the challenges that we've tackled together: healthcare, salary structure, consensus bargaining. Let's hope we never go back there. And getting all that stuff done before Act 10, to where we could go into Act 10 without having all that turmoil that other districts, and also getting a big advance financial gain from that. That was all due to your perseverance to follow through. Very few superintendents would have done that. And then the OPEB lawsuit. I mean, you pretty much single-handedly carried that ball for all 5 school districts. And that's the second largest legal settlement in the state of Wisconsin. The only one that was bigger was the tobacco settlement. And that's a tremendous accomplishment. That's a testament to your leadership that benefited all of southeastern Wisconsin, and also the ability to work with board president leadership. But I'd say the most amazing thing was how many people wanted to take your job. I mean, they looked at all the great things we're doing in Waukesha, most of them that you started or advanced, and they said, well, we've been trying to copy that. And since we've tried to copy it, and we've done, reasonably well, but we really think we can come into Waukesha and really do some great things with what your superintendent has already done. And that was across the board, all the candidates that we interviewed. So we're recognized as an exceptional district. We weren't that when you came. So I always like to judge people by where we started and where we end. And it wasn't one of these jagged curves. It was just like this. And it's not like it's just like this and it's going to go like that. It's going to go just like this and it's going to continue to go just like this. So it's not only where we start, where we end, but where we're going to go to after you leave. Because you set us on a path that I believe is going to take us to the very top. And I appreciate that.
Amanda.
Yes, thank you. Well, being the last one around the circle, a lot of what I had written has been said, so I won't repeat all of it, but I do agree with all of it. Let me just highlight a few notes that I wanted to share, things that I've heard and experienced myself. In talking with, just over the years, teachers and principals, they always told me that they're like, Todd, we always know what's happening. Todd fills us in. Todd keeps us up, updated. And they always compliment your communication skills. And granted, you might not have been the one to hit send on everything, but you, with your direction and your leadership, your team, made sure that the information was always out to the teachers and the principals. Your team, you like everyone said, you've put together this fantastic team, and they're loyal to you. And by that loyalty, that spreads out to the rest of the district and to us. And so we appreciate your leadership in that. I've witnessed you, whether you've seen me witness it or not, and good interactions and not so good interactions with people, either students or people in the community. And you've always handled yourself calmly and with poise. And I very much admired you for that, because it's not easy having somebody screaming in your face. And you always carried yourself very well. So I appreciate that of you. Your 12 years, I've only been around, I think 8 years as a parent, but 4 as a board member. But your 12 years here and what you've built in that time gave stability to our district. So I too, like Karen and Corey here, my children have benefited from the programs and things that have been laid out. So directly, my family has benefited. So thank you so much for that. For your wife, thank you. She's done so much. Anytime in the schools, I see her, and at events, she's there supporting, and that's so. I appreciate that dedication from the family, because I know it's usually not just one. The family comes along with. And then a last thing, I think I've only ever shared this with you once, one-on-one, but when I first came on the board, first was elected, I had a conversation with my father, and he's never steered me wrong and things. And I said, Daddy, what do I do? I said, who do you know on this board already? And he said, Todd's a good one. He goes, you can trust him in the direction that he sends. So that to me was awesome. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
We have 2 special guests here tonight in the audience who have served on this Board of Education. We have Barbara Brezink and Pat Madden, and you have both served with Todd. If you want, please step up and say something. If you want, only if you want. I didn't plan that, but I'm glad to see you guys. This is Barbara Brezink.
Thank you. Todd, you were a joy to work with. The thing that was greatest in my book about you is that you recognize leadership in people, and you allowed leaders to be leaders in their unique way of being leaders, and that was most appreciated. You allowed me to do as much as I wanted to do to benefit the district. It was a joy working with you. You're a wonderful, wonderful leader, and bless you, and I hope your future is as bright as your days were here in Waukesha. Best wishes to you, Todd. I love you dearly.
And Pat Madden. It's so good to see both of you. It really is. But you can't vote tonight, you know.
I have never refused a chance to speak. So, Todd, thanks so much. I was on the team when we hired you, and so I had to come to your last board meeting to see that you were continuing your work, and that I'm sure through the voices of the people that spoke, your work will continue, because they will remind the new superintendent that things aren't the way they should be. And this is the way Todd Gray did it, and I think we're to stick to that. But thank you so much. The community really has been grateful that you are our leader through the school district. You've done wonderful things for the district and for our community, being involved with the community also. So I wish you the best in retirement. And by the way, you hired a good principal for Hadfield, because that's, I went all through Hadfield. So
that's right.
That's cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat, and thank you, Barb, for your comments. We appreciate it, and thank you for being here tonight for this occasion. You heard, I think, a theme here tonight. You and I, we've talked about John Maxwell, who is an expert in leadership, internationally known, and he summarizes leadership with one word, and that's influence. True leaders influence. Doesn't come with a title. Many people think it comes with a title. Title means nothing. Influence, your influence will last for years to come. And that's what we talked about. And Mr. O'Brien had talked about the trajectory. We have momentum, and it will last for a long time. And we have a very simple but elegant thing to present to you.
Oh, wonderful.
As you know, Sue has great ideas.
Yes, she does. She does.
And so I could
share that with my wife.
No.
Okay.
Oh,
I'll take the
I thought you were gonna
cookies.
say in
I'll
the
take
back.
the cookies,
Okay.
though.
Yes, with Karen, yes.
Yeah, good.
So we have a crystal for you to remember your 12 years of service with us. It's a simple token, very simple. And I'd like to just read it.
Good.
A leader stands out by the nature of one's commitment and the integrity of one's character. In appreciation for your leadership of the School District of Waukesha, Dr. Todd W. Gray, Superintendent, 2008 to 2020. Todd, we thank you. We wish you luck with your retirement. I know you won't be a stranger. God's blessings to you. And we'll give you some time to talk.
Great.
Congratulations.
Great. Thank you. Okay, I won't keep this long, but I still remember sitting back there in my first interview. First, I could barely find the building. I thought, oh boy. But I felt so good leaving there. And then at the next night, about 2 a.m., I got a phone call saying, you're a finalist. And I was like, oh my God, okay. So then the other meeting, and then I still remember the meeting I had with Kurt and Dan Warren in the restaurant at the Holiday Inn, going over contract. Still remember that like it was yesterday. So we have 4 members of the board who hired me, and 2 are visiting tonight. And I'll be seeing Dan Warren on Monday, by the way. So he's going to be stuck.
Golfing?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah. Our annual golf event. So That's been wonderful. And I think any success that I've had, is from my people. The people I've hired, you've allowed me to hire the best people I can. And another wise old superintendent said, hire good people, stay out of their way. And I've really tried to do that. But I look back in those early years and you let me do some things that were crazy. I mean, it was like, I remember walking down the hall with Cynthia Gann, and she's telling me about dual language. I said, why are you wasting time talking to me? Go do it. And I think that, if you just let people do what they do best in an organization, that's what makes all the difference. And that's what I've tried to do. And you've allowed me to do that. I mean, it's come with some challenges. I remember early on F&F meetings, trying to get 4K in place. And those were some, pretty tough questions. Mr. Warren, Mr. O'Brien, it was, Mr. Como were not that easy on me. But that was good because we made sure that we had our ducks in a row so that financially it made sense and it was good for the district. All those things. I mean, I look back at even though Achieve had been in place, I think some of the tough questioning and the tough analysis we had to do on that program and the changes we had to make have made it successful today. And without that, I think, things would not have gone well. But my team and the team I've had over the past is, I owe all the credit to them, all the credit to our teachers. I mean, 13,000 kids need a lot of good teachers, and we've had that. And so the success is, I think, having good people in place, letting them do what they need to do, and supporting them while they needed to do it. So that's been, I think that's a pretty easy recipe for success, and it's worked well. But again, thanks to this board for, again, hiring me, the members who hired me. I'm still, can't believe it, but here I am, and it's been a wonderful place. And I told Freeman, I said, the first time I sat in that office, it felt like this was the place to be. And I think the board has supported me. Again, like I said early on, some of those things we did were, crazy. I mean, the STEM school, some of those types of things were new and untested, but you had faith in me and you allowed me to do it, and I sincerely appreciate that because it's made all the difference in the world. So I'll still be in Waukesha. I may show up to, speak to the board from time to time. I'll be nice. No, thank you. Thank you. It's been a very fast 12 years. It's gone by very, very fast, believe it or not. And I wish everyone the best of luck. I know, this year has been a year like no other, starting in December and on through the end of this year. And I think next year is going to be another huge challenge. But you've got the people in place to make it happen. So you're in good shoes. You'll be in good shoes. So thank you.
Thank you, Todd. This is pretty good packaging you put in. Bring it home safe.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, moving on. We do not have a report from our student representatives tonight. So we're now at the portion of our meeting where we listen to our citizens address us. As we've done past practice, we allow for 3 minutes of time for each person to address us. Amanda, at the 2.5-minute mark, will give an indication to try and wrap up your comments within 30 seconds. We expect all speakers to honor our time limit, refrain from using any inappropriate language in any manner, and be respectful in their comments. Speakers who do not meet these expectations may be prohibited from speaking at future Board of Education meetings. We also expect that the audience will be respectful of the speaker and of the Board of Education and refrain from any verbal comments, cheering, applause, or other behavior that will detract from the meeting. And just a reminder, if you haven't silenced your phones yet, we would appreciate that. And so we do have one person signed up, and that's Mr. Paul Reese. Welcome, Paul.
Good evening. First off, praise God. It's so nice seeing you, Barb. Let me do that. As growing up, I really like what Corey had to say. As growing up, I liked philosophy and things of philosophers and people who were good leaders and good thought and deep thought and could explain themselves and hold well. Some things, because their time is real short here, some things that I really liked growing up was like Proverbs 27:17, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. Or George S. Patton, is everyone thinks alike, someone's not thinking. These are not things that deal in right and wrong. They pound out ideas. Christ said that we testify to what we know. So I can only know what I have. The evidence I can interpret things through is what the knowledge that I bring into the situation. So these things speak to that. And then growing up, there were great men that I really liked. And one was a guy by the name of Patrick Moynihan. And if anyone knows who he was a senator from New York who had a bit of a stutter. But he was a great intellect and a great thinker. And he once said something that deals with education. He mentioned something about the soft bigotry of low expectations. Today we call that social justice. He was a great thinker. He was a great man and a great idea. And one thing that made him great is because if you disagreed with him, you weren't evil. He could disagree with you and argue his case. But it did not make you evil or wrong that you disagreed. Like Patton said, when everyone thinks alike, someone's not thinking. Everyone wants to think here. Just because you're thinking outside the box does not make that wrong. It just is another way of looking at things. And there are great men and great leaders. And to that is what I recognize in Todd Gray. He was a good, great leader. And like Patrick Moynihan, when he was gone, when he started to recede from the Senate, I never realized how much I would miss him. How much I missed that intellect and that arguing with my TV about what he was saying. But I did. He was greatly missed when he was gone. He was that old guard that just disappeared, and things haven't been the same since. I'm going to miss you, Todd. I don't always have to agree with someone to realize how good of a leader they are and a good person that they are. I get fiery sometimes, and I have my opinions on things, but that's passion.
30 seconds.
It never recognizes, and I never got that sense from you that you ever dispel anybody or disregard anybody's feelings about, not feelings isn't the word, but just their opinions of things and hold that against them just because you may disagree with them or not. I'm going to miss you, and the ship is setting sail again into a storm, and we're going to change captains, and that kind of scares me. But I wish you the best as you sail off of your next chapter of life, and a fair adieu to you, and the best of wishes.
Thank you, Paul.
Is there anyone else in the audience, and I'll give some time because I know there's a delay between here and the other room where the majority of the audience is, that would like to address us? Hi, Kimberly.
Thank you. My name is Kimberly Coronado. I am the parent of 4 students with disabilities in the school district. My theme is change. I'm here as a parent in our district as an agent of change. I'm here to talk to you about change. To challenge the status quo and embrace the change which is desperate. I welcome new leadership that values collaboration and partnerships with others. Vision. I look forward to being part of this new vision. No child is left behind. I look forward to when every student can read, write, spell, and score above 3rd grade math. I look forward to closing the achievement gap of all students, especially those with disabilities. I look forward to authentic parent engagement, not being a token. I look forward to seeing educational equality for all students in Waukesha School District. I look forward to ending the school-to-prison pipeline and criminalization of students of color and disabilities. Most of all, I look forward to more support for staff and students' mental health, with trauma-sensitive school practices being actualized. Change is hard, vital. Waukesha School District.
That's everyone, you think, Sue? Okay. Okay, well, thank you, everyone, for your comments. Moving on to our minute approval. We do have 8 sets of minutes. We have been busy this last month. How busy have we been, Diane?
I actually did the tally on each of the minute, how many hours we spent since our last time together here. Any guesses of how many hours of just being here, not all the preparation of preparing for the
And
interviews
virtually?
and, et cetera, et cetera. But we're talking about 22 and a quarter hours.
Of just meetings,
Use,
yeah.
et cetera.
Prep, yeah.
So,
Yeah,
and
we do.
I move that we accept the minutes that are aptly put together here for all 8 of those experiences.
Okay, and let me list those to put them in our record here. So we have a regular board meeting of May 13th, executive session of May 13th, executive session on May 18th, a public hearing on May 19th, an executive session on May 20th, an executive session on June 1st, an executive second on June 2nd, an executive session on June 4th. So we accept the motion by Diane. Is there a second to that motion? Seconded by Kurt O'Brien. Any discussion? Okay, Sue, please take the roll call vote.
Aye.
William Baumgart.
Aye.
Patrick McCaffrey.
Aye.
Karen Reinacek.
Aye.
Kurt O'Brien.
Aye.
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 Aye. Passes 9-0, Sue. Moving on to our communications report given by Dr. Gray.
I have 3 letters this evening. All 3 are from Dave Sternig, Commissioner of the Classic 8. The first one is regarding scholar athletes for Waukesha North High School. Student athletes that have achieved a cumulative grade point average of 3.5 are multiple sport athletes and who have participated in their senior year and have no athletic code violations are considered scholar athletes. For North, Brett Huleberger, Maggie Hansen, Logan Smolinski, Maddie Warren, Chamiri Dike, Sydney Martins, Caden Ramspot, Haley Blagdorn, Johnny Kelleher, and Alma Sandoval. Second letter, same thing, although this is South High School. Again, these are the student scholar athletes for Waukesha South High School. Noah Mraz, Sydney Strum, Bryson Kirsch, Corin Harrington, Liz Stillman, Alex Kaminsky, Tyler Rube, Taylor Short, Aaron Lawrence, and Nick Wagoner. And finally, again, our student scholar athletes for West High School in the Classic 8. And I'm going to struggle with some of these names, so just bear with me. Tamara Ulalisa, Eric Duberstein, Olivia Luther, Jack Ginter, Kaylin Serino, Avery Ousu Asidu, I hope that's right, Kaya Kuokinen, Lucas Stray, Emily Rather, and Brent Bartlett. And congratulations to all these scholar athletes.
I'm glad you were listing them and not me. Fantastic.
Yep.
Those are incredible accomplishments of those students. Fantastic job. Diane, do you have a Waukesha Education Foundation report for us?
Yes, I do, Mr. President. Each of you has a newsletter at your desk. If you want to pull it out, I'll be referencing that as I go along to streamline how many things I have to say verbally. But on May 27th, 30 Waukesha Education Foundation grant winners were surprised either at their homes or at their schools. So we've got them to come in to actually be able to be recipients of their gift bags and novelty checks to announce that 30 had received innovative grants for their innovative ideas. 30 grants were awarded, totaling over $35,000. You can see the exact amount of the check on the newsletter that's presented here. We're pleased to be able to fund each grant that was applied for. You know, everyone that was an applicant got at least a partial payment for what was available. So that was 22 individual grants impacting 16 different schools and 8 grants impacting multiple schools. So every school almost has been touched by a grant, you know, in some shape or form. Proud of the fact that we are now at a $330,000 level of grants that have been given out since WEF has started. So I think that's pretty impressive. I want to thank Amanda and Kurt for joining us for our virtual celebration on the 27th. Again, in these different times, we couldn't go to the schools like we usually would do, like Barb, you did with us for several years. So we had everybody come together with a Zoom session, and it was a fun way to be able to recognize them all together in one place. And each of them that we're proud to celebrate is listed on page 2 of the newsletter that you have. Again, many creative ideas that we're very, very proud to say that we are able to make possible. The second thing that I want to address is the fact that WEF was able to honor many graduating seniors by recording announcements, again in these unusual times, for the scholarship winners and anyone that was eligible for a scholarship through the funds that are held by the WEF endowed funds. And then we virtually presented those as part of the virtual honors nights. And we're proud to say that in that process, we were able to award over $20,000 in scholarships to members of the class of 2020 at North, South, and West High Schools. The next thing that's in the newsletter is a tribute again to Todd. We want to thank Dr. Todd Gray for his years of service on the WEF Board of Directors. There's a listing in the newsletter of all the members of our Board of Directors, and Todd has been on that board since, I was going to say 7, 9?
Well, I was ex officio for a while, and then they made me a real board member.
So
sometime.
We made him real
Yeah.
somewhere along the way. And he's done, as I had mentioned, and as is included in the earlier pages in the newsletter, the recognition of the Lifetime of Excellence in Education Award named for Sally Michelko, and recognizing him for the many things he's done on behalf of the students of the School District of Waukesha through the Waukesha Education Foundation. So thank you there as well in the newsletter. And at the very bottom of the page 4 is the reference to the fact that we're still scheduled to go on with our golf outing. With these crazy times, this is one thing that we can maybe still do with new criteria. The golf carts will be handled differently, and we're not going to be able to have the evening dinner and some of the usual things that we might have been involved in the past. But on August 4th, it is on, and we'll be holding our 14th annual WEF golf outing at Western Lakes Golf Club. The course is working with us to assure everyone's safety will be considered, and we encourage board members and administrators to participate. If you're able, you can register online or by contacting Lynette, our WEF Executive Director. We already have 70 golfers registered, and we have room for 16 more foursomes and a handful of sponsors if anyone wants to still get involved. So I would like to thank you, Mr. President, for giving me the chance to share these comments, and that concludes my report.
Thank you. Excellent. Excellent to hear the golf outing is still on. That's good news. Yes. Moving on to our charter school and program report given by Mr. Bungard.
I really have no report. I would just assume that all the charters are still out there doing their thing, so, but I haven't visited them, so.
Okay. Thank you, Bill. We're going to move on to our next discussion item. Topic I'm sure many people in the audience are waiting to hear where we stand with reopening the district. We started to put our toe in the water a little bit tonight. There's going to be a discussion on later this evening of allowing kids into our facilities this summer. And Todd, why don't you bring everyone up to speed on where our thoughts are and where you think we might be going here?
Well, my executive team and I have met almost daily. We've slowed down a little bit, and every time we meet each morning, this is one of the topics of discussion. There's just so many things going on, so many things to think of. Our primary goal is to get schools up and running like they normally do under normal conditions. But what that looks like might be something different than what we're used to. I spent 2 hours today on a WebEx phone call with County Exec Paul Farrell, County HHS Director Ben Jones, and all our superintendents in Waukesha County, kind of trying to get a feel for what things might look like. And we're still waiting for some guidance. HHS is still waiting for some guidance from CDC and other places. We are also waiting for guidance from DPI, and I think Dr. Cook had heard from them today that something should be coming out next week, hopefully. That will give us an opportunity to start putting some real plans together, because there's just so much unknown. We have approximately 78 days between now and September 1st, and there are a lot of different things that could happen. But this is just the list. This is today's meeting alone, the list of things that need to be considered, and there's probably 30 or 40 different things. For example, one is we might be able to socially distance students in our schools. We might be able to do some things there, but what about transportation? There's no way you can socially distance kids on a bus unless you're running 20 kids on a 60-passenger bus. And as all the superintendents noted, that's just not financially feasible. So there's a lot of those things that we're going to need to work through. We do have different options. We're very fortunate in this district that we have e-Achieve, so we have a good model to work off of. But if parents, for some reason, decide, don't feel good about sending my students back to a brick and mortar school, we are going to open the enrollment to e-Achieve for that purpose. And we've already seen a pretty good increase in that already, and we think we'll see more going into next year. But all the things you've heard about social distancing are all the things that we're looking at in our schools, how we can manage that. And again, the director of HHS says, there might be a point where things get bad enough again and we're going to have to tell you to close. We will be ready for that. We'll be ready for whatever that means. Some of the other things we've kind of discussed. What about staggering, a schedule that goes from 8 until noon and then noon until 4 if we have to have fewer kids in a building or fewer kids in a classroom. I think my team is ready to go with just about any scenario we need to go with, but there's so much information coming in and it changes. 2 days ago, the World Health Organization said asymptomatic people aren't a threat, aren't carriers. Today they came out and they said, whoops, they are. So that's what we're dealing with, and kind of a changing scenario. So I don't know if any of my team wants to jump in on anything. I know Joe and Darren have worked really hard in getting things to a point where I feel really comfortable that whatever we're faced with, we're ready to go. We are attempting, we're hoping, well, not hoping, we are expecting to get Lindholm up to full staff on Monday. We're doing some things with plexiglass and some things to keep people safe. We won't be opening it up for public, but if someone needs an appointment, we'll make that work. So I don't know, Darren or Joe, anything you guys want to add? Covered it. Yeah.
This is a discussion item, so Mr. Bryan?
WASB's been running weekly ever since this shutdown occurred, and today I finally watched one of them, and it was about an addendum for the employee handbooks. And we think about the kids, and we think about this, and this, and it's about planning farther ahead. And they're not really waiting for guidance. I mean, they're taking what guidance they have and trying to provide some policy suggestions for our handbook for our employees. And one of the things they said is, because you're going to probably want to quarantine staff prior to coming to school, is they would say you should encourage your staff to take vacation in July rather than August. So they're ready to come. Be terrible if they took it in August and had to wait 14 days before they could actually come to school. Another was the food and bus service. Comment was, if you get some food service employees, one gets sick and they're doing contact tracing, you could lose all of them for quarantine. Shut down a complete, the small school system can shut down your food service. And the other was the bus service, to work with your bus provider, that you don't want the bus drivers to be congregating, because if one gets, it's going to take out all your bus drivers. So there's a lot of employee things we have to think about when it comes to reopening. The other point was HIPAA. We got to protect our employees' confidentiality.
Yes, that
That's the
came
law.
up today in ours as well. Yeah.
And their suggestion was that if you have a staff member come down with the situation, is to let the public health people handle the contact. Don't do it yourself because you're likely to unintentionally provide information you're not allowed to provide legally. And by doing it through the public health people, you protect the district, and you also protect that employee. Another point was the conditions for returning to work. They said that, it's kind of optional where you get a doctor's note or not, but they said the problem with getting a doctor's note, it might be hard to get. So you might not want to put that in the policy.
Yeah.
Then they talked about wearing a mask and facial coverings for employees. You're going to have to make accommodations for employees that can't wear masks. Had a whole list of things you check off. It seems like the age limit, that it doesn't mean that you couldn't teach if you're 65, but that if you check the box, I'm over 65, you have to have a discussion with that teacher about, are they comfortable with coming to school and teaching. In fact, there's like 6 or 7 different things that put an educator in a risk category, that if they check the box yes for any of those risk categories, doesn't mean they can't teach. It means you have to have a conversation with them. You can't just ignore that they're in a risk category. So it's great advice. It's recorded. WASB's done a great job of not waiting for direction from whomever and trying to help school districts. I mean, there's 465 of us, right? And we all have different needs, but it was really, I thought it was very helpful. It's only an hour long, and I'm sure we need to get on with this communication-wise. The more information we can gather rather than waiting for someone to tell us. I know Marquette's going through a major implementation plan right now. They're going to go back. You know why. And then we also know that Elmbrook is very aggressive on their schedule. That's why a lot of parents are asking us. They want to know what we're up to.
Well, I mean, our primary goal is, our plan is open school as they normally do, but tell us exactly what parameters or metrics we have to have in place to that point. I mean, we know how to run, we know what school looks like normally, but what things do we need to do? What things do we have to do? What things are recommended we do? And then are they feasible? Someone said, well, every student has to have a mask on all day. That's just not going to work. I mean, it'd be nice, but I just don't think we'll see students adhering to that. And what if they don't? What are the consequences? So there's a lot of things that we can plan for, but some of them have to be feasible. So that's kind of what we're looking at.
Diane?
I've had an opportunity to talk to a lot of other school board members at the SWSA meetings that we've been holding every couple of weeks, since the COVID situation started. And they've really given a lot of supportive ideas about things that other districts are thinking about trying. One I think that's worth considering is the idea of a shield for teachers to wear rather than a mask. That actually, be a clear shield so the kids can still see their faces and not have the, half cover-up kind of a situation, but yet protect their eyes and their nose, and the potential to spread the disease by, with a cough or something like that. So it's a different kind of, PPE kind of situation that we might want to look at as being one, especially for the lower grades, where the kids, would have a harder time having a teacher with a mask on, during the teaching sessions. Another very serious consideration is adaptations for special needs students. What kinds of things can we be doing to make sure that they can still get the support services that they need? And I think we've done a really good job with that during the last couple of months, but that's for a lot of districts, that's a huge piece, that the kids can still get the therapy that they need and some of the special services that are an important part of their programming, their IEPs. So one of the things I thought that was really helpful too is that the school board member from Elmbrook was saying that as they They had 250 volunteers step up to want to be part of their task force, to be able to have input on how to handle the reopening. And they plan to post the notes of their meetings as they're going on this summer. So I think it's something that we don't necessarily have to bring 250 people together to get their input. But they're Waukesha County, so if we can get their feedback, let them go through the steps of actually having the task force in place. But I think we can learn a lot from the feedback that the community is giving them.
Corey?
Thank you. If you can think of an issue that ticks all the boxes, personal freedom, government intrusion, personal liberty, people having the ability to decide what their kids do, this is it. If you want history facing you in the face, this is it. What I think I am going to really try to focus on is this, when you boil it, all these discussions, we could spend many, many hours, it comes down to, as a board, what risk are we willing to take for our students? What risk are we willing to take for our educators and our staff? There is no perfect answer. No matter what we do, there are going to be many, many people that hate the decision, regardless of how it turns out. I know all of you, I think, well enough to think that we're okay with that. But what risk are we willing to take? And I've looked at the CDC guidelines, I've looked at the DHS guidelines, I've looked at the county guidelines. I'm very curious, or I find it somewhat curious, because they're politicians, that they use the word guidelines. Guidelines, that I think anybody who looks at that quickly means that's the rule. These are recommendations. They could very easily use the word recommendations, and people would not take them as seriously. I'm not saying they're bad, I'm not saying they're inappropriate, but we need to decide as a school board what's obligatory, as Dr. Gray said, what is discretionary. If all we have is guidelines, it's up to this board. If the board says we open in August, we open in August. That, the secondary question is, are we going to have staff? Are we going to have students? What do we do? How do we properly make them as safe as possible? Are we going to have face shields? Are students going to be expected to wear masks? There's so much, especially at the lower level, elementary level, that doesn't just go into curriculum, that we can't achieve and e-achieve. That interaction, all those things. We have maybe 4 years, 5 years of those students. If this continues, heaven forbid, through that, we're going to lose a generation of students having that interaction with their peers. That is going to dramatically change when we send those young minds, or 18-year-old minds, out in the world to make our world a better place. It's going to dramatically change our existence. So I don't want people in the public, because we get lots of questions, lots of phone calls, to think that we're just winging it. I'm not going to suggest anybody on this board punts and just says, because the county says we should do this, the state says we should do this, we're just going to follow that. And Dr. Gray's not suggesting that, because that's punting. Because if it screws up and all the kids get sick, or we lose that generation to have that interaction through education, we can say it was the county or it was CDC. I'm confident this board will look at all of those. The administration is already doing it. So it's a big decision, and we just have to really exhaust all efforts to figure out what's obligatory, what's safe, and what level of risk are we willing to take. If we come back in any shape or form, whether it's staggered or fully back, and this is still around COVID, kids are going to get sick. How sick they get, I don't know. The current stats and the research seems to say their symptoms for children are not anywhere near what, the more susceptible with comorbidity for elderly people or older people have. So we're going to do the best we can. I guess that's my pledge and everybody else's pledge. So I think you got to keep those things in mind.
Kurt?
Well, I don't think we can rule anything out when it comes to protecting our employees and our kids. And, I come from the industrial sector. I've come from companies that, you don't have an option, right, with employers. If your employer says you're going to wear a mask, you're going to wear a mask. I'm not saying we're going to do that. And I'm not saying what Waukesha is going to do, but I can tell you that the viability and economic consequences for the district of not doing as much as we possibly can is high. So these masks are pretty comfortable. I wouldn't want to use the paper ones, but I think that's something that we need to think about and consider. And if we're going to go with masks for kids, we need to figure out how we're going to handle that, because they're going to need But I don't think we should be taking any risk. And like our parents, they've learned that some of the children aren't a joy to have in class, is the joke. They want their kids back in school. The kids want to be back in school. There's no doubt about that. I think our community wants them back in school. I think economically it's a good idea to have our kids back in school. But to do that and do that successfully with the lowest amount of risk means that we have to do what we need to do. And we have to ask the community's help to get that done, and our staff's, because we need to protect people. That's what a good employer does. That's what a good citizen does. In this case, we're all in it together, in reality.
That's actually that is a good point, because one of the things that HHS talked about is pretty hard to do mass screening every day of every student coming in. Now, there are devices that kids can walk through instantly, but they're not out there yet. But, we'll take South High School to do 1,400 temps. But they're saying, ask your parents to be vigilant about what condition their kids are in. If they're sick, if they're not feeling well, if they have a fever, have them checked out, don't send them to school. So you're right, we are going to need a lot of help from the community to make this work. So,
Amanda?
Just a question as you're preparing for this and attending these, is it in the plans that we are surveying the staff and families, just to say, if we were to say right now, you'll go back to school, would you say yes or no? Would you send your kids, would you not? Based off of the information at hand. Do we have a plan to do something like that?
that would probably be more like July. Right now, I don't know. I mean, we could do it pretty quickly, but I guess waiting till July, we might have some more information out there. Again, hopefully we'll have some more information from different organizations, and we would do it then.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Communications-wise, Todd, I think we have to over-communicate on this. And what makes it tricky, though, is you can't communicate every discussion that you and your team has, right? Because they're discussion amongst the team. But when there are key points that need to come out, we need to over-communicate. We need to communicate to the general public. We need to communicate to the parents. We need to communicate to our staff, to our board. And we're trusting your judgment in how and when you go about doing that. But I would think, I know for myself, and I know this board fairly well, and I don't want to speak on the behalf of all of you, we need to make sure people truly understand where this is going, and as soon as we have, and sometimes the information that we're going to release is going to be gray. It's not going to be crystal. It's not going to be like your crystal. It's going to be, sometimes it's going to be muddy. So it is tricky to figure out what to communicate when, but I think we have to be vigilant at keeping people informed.
Right, and again, we had most of the superintendents on this WebEx call today, and I think everyone's kind of in the same boat. We all want to open. The main plan is to open as we normally do, but what parameters are we going to have in place by September 1st?
Fair enough. Anybody else? Okay, thank you, and we look forward to learning more as we progress.
I'm sure next week we'll have some another, whether it's a press release or parent release, one of the two. We should have some more information by then.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And thank you to your team. You guys are working countless hours on this, trying to figure this. This is the most complex issue education has ever encountered, bar none. And there are many risks, as we've pointed out tonight. And we know we're in good hands with you and your team. And let's see how we move forward. Appreciate it. Appreciate all the effort. Moving on to our next agendized item, contract approval of the new superintendent of the school district of Waukesha. What I'd like to do before I ask for a motion is I'd like to just talk about where we've been. It started back in March. We had, at that time, actually, Pat had turned in his letter of resignation February 28th. I will remember that day forever. And then, as a board, one of the first things that we had done is we formed an ad hoc committee for the superintendency search. And that was led by Kurt O'Brien, and Bill served on that, Diane served on that. And the two things that they were charged to do right away was to find a recruiting firm. So the RFPs were sent out, and committee got together and talked through that. And then they were charged also, they made a recommendation to the board, and we agreed on who to choose. And they were also charged with putting together a group of citizens from our community that would represent our community well. And eventually what we did is we selected School Exec Connect, and our next task was to create a new superintendent's profile. And there was approximately 1,200 people that had survey input into that. And then we had individual calls from Dr. Matt Gibson, who headed up the recruiting efforts on behalf of SEC, School Exec Connect. And that profile was put together and provided to us. That was helpful. That was key. That was really at the heart of who we wanted our next superintendent to be. So we, and I'm kind of maybe abbreviating some of the steps here, trying to be a little more succinct, I guess. So we advertised, we told the world that we are doing this search, and the recruiters also reached out to people within their network, and we wound up with 30 people who wanted to toss their hat in the ring. 25 people actually filled out the applications, went through the process, and that was narrowed down to 6 preliminary candidates. Very highly qualified candidates. When COVID-19 came out and we were starting this process, I don't think any of us were really sure what was going to happen. Were we going to get anybody tossing their hat in the ring? What kind of quality candidates are we going to get? We had 6 really good preliminary candidates. And we had virtual interviews with each of them, and we had a set of 9 questions. We each took turns asking questions. And based upon the answers that those preliminary candidates had given to us, we did our due diligence, and we were able to narrow it down to 3 finalists. And those 3 finalists were Dr. Cassandra Shug, Dr. Joe Cook, and Dr. Jim Siebert. And the next week, the following week, we had each person on a different day, had a virtual tour of our district, and wound up the last hour, basically, by Dr. Gibson leading a 1-hour session that anybody in the public could watch virtually. And each finalist had a chance to tell about who they are, what they've done, and then they got to answer, again, 9 or 10 questions, somewhere along the lines. And people got to see that live. That was great. I got a lot of feedback from community members saying that was really nice to be able to see all three finalists. For those that watched, there was a survey that was given and feedback given back to us. There were several pieces of data actually that we've had throughout the course of this process. And that was one piece. Once we had finished up that week of virtual tours, we then had every finalist, we as a board wanted to meet them in person. We didn't want the finalist interviews to be done virtually. And I'm glad that we were able to do that. I think we did that safely. I guess we'll know in a couple weeks here if we did or not. But we had some excellent interviews by 3 highly qualified candidates. They're all very good. All very good. All could run this district. And then we got into our deliberation, and that was last Thursday evening. And we do have we do have a selection, and that selection, as you know and you've probably read about, is Dr. Jim Siebert, who is currently at the Fond du Lac, Superintendent of Fond du Lac. So did I miss anything? Maybe I did. Kurt?
All sorts of stuff.
Okay.
First of all, I want to thank our little committee we threw together, Diane and Bill, helped get this thing going. Very cooperative, very productive meetings. It's just a couple to get this thing launched. The school exec team that we selected, Matt Gibson, who was former superintendent at Elmbrook. He was replaced by Mark Hansen, an ex-school district Waukesha person. And Kelly Thompson, who's the current superintendent at Muskego, Norway, and Jerry Freitag. Those were the 3 parties involved.
Yes.
But, Matt was the person that kind of helped guide this entire process all the way through to the point of helping with contract negotiations. Then another thing I'd like to thank is the ad hoc community that we appointed, Dave Bauer, Bernie Gonzalez, Sarah Barrett, Kelly Piacek, Brenda Schaefer, and Jeanette Clark. They were really very helpful. We weren't sure how much we could engage the community during the pandemic side, so each of us decided to volunteer 2 people for the committee, and it really gave a great cross-section of the district. What I will say about the process, and you went over it almost, but I would say that every step of the process and every input from the community was taken into account. Diane read from the questions, 460 of them, or it was a lot. And I know I went through every one, and I know Diane did. And we got conflicting stuff, there wasn't do this, do that. Sometimes they're exact opposites. But what we did see in all those comments was a lot of comments about how great of a school district we have. That was almost across the board. And then the 12 attributes that we graded out, again, that was scored.
Profile. Yep.
That was scored by the people who watched, that were able to see. And, we looked at that. Not that you could easily compare, because, it depended on what day you presented. There's some bias associated with that. But one thing that did stand out was, the successful candidate basically scored high on all 12 attributes from those who watched the interview. And then the references and contacts, I don't think we ran into anything but very positive on all 3. And when the board went around, we talked about the positives on all 3, and there was lots of positives on all 3. So it was a tough decision, and it's just very important that this school district found the best possible candidate, and I believe we did. But that doesn't mean we didn't have excellent candidates all the way through. All 6 of them could have been finalists, to be honest with you. Appreciate the board's efforts, appreciate the community's efforts, appreciate the candidates and the exec committee. And then I'll also say the pleasure of the contract process. I did it with Mr. Warren, I did it with Mr. Como. It was like I was looking at Mr. Warren and Mr. Como like they were the same people.
I'm not as good of a golfer as Dan is.
And, it was a very cooperative attitude, and Joe made some great decisions that helped us through this process when we did that final negotiation. And all I did was just try to support him. And this was just a very good process for the board, and I think that's going to be good for the community.
Few more people, 3 more people I want to thank that really put forth a lot of effort. Sue Enger, who's sitting right here. Sharon, who's Thede, who's assistant superintendent. back there, and Susanna Pulaski. Are you watching tonight, Susanna? Hope so. We'll know if you don't call me in the morning. I know you weren't watching.
Bill?
Yes, Bill.
I think you missed one that was at a lot of the meetings. Steve Schloman.
Oh my gosh.
Kept all of our technology running.
Yes.
Through board and for meeting after
Oh,
meeting.
yes. Thank you, Steve. We actually, all the virtual stuff couldn't have happened without Steve. Yes, Kurt.
The virtual stuff went so well that I have to believe that school exec's going to do more of that going forward. I mean, it broadens your scope of how you can go after candidates and how you can work with them and how you can engage the community. I think they ought to pay us for how much we showed them how good that was. Steve was a big part of that, yes. So.
Okay, anything else that anyone would like to add on the process itself? Okay, so we're at a point where I would be looking for a motion to approve the new contract. Kurt?
I move to approve the new superintendent's contract for Dr. Jim Siebert.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Discussion. Okay, Kurt?
The contract, let's just talk about the base compensation. The base compensation is in line with what we're used to paying now in Waukesha for a superintendent with experience. Discussions were that Waukesha tends to pay for performance. We demonstrated that with Dave Schmidt. We demonstrated that with Dr. Gray, in that we don't just stick to CPI as we go from year to year. If we see a high level of performance, we always want to make sure we stay with the other districts and compensate our superintendent accordingly. So we feel it's the proper base to start with. And as we see the type of trajectory we hope for Dr. Siebert, we believe we'll be able to continue to compensate him in line with what districts are being paid around us that probably don't have as big a challenge as Waukesha, but we plan to have the very best superintendent, and I think we're in that position.
Yes, Mr. Dietz.
I'm just very excited for our students, parents, staff, community, the Board of Education, to get the chance to know and to work with Dr. Siebert, our new superintendent, beginning on July 1st. I'm confident that he will build strong relationships, that he will be visible, engaged, an active listener, an excellent communicator. Following are some of his quotes that I heard Dr. Siebert say during the extensive interview process. I will bring hope and inspire others. I will be the lead learner in the district. We are going to think in terms of excellence in the school district of Waukesha. All people and positions will be valued. I will be the district's biggest cheerleader. So it's with much anticipation that I look forward to working with Dr. Siebert, and I welcome him to the school district of Waukesha.
Thank you, Greg. Other comments? We want to get down to business, it looks like. So there's a motion on the table. It's been seconded to approve the new superintendent contract for the school district of Waukesha, Dr. Jim Siebert. Sue, will you please take the roll call vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Corey Montiel.
Aye.
Patrick McCaffrey.
Aye.
Diane Voigt.
Aye.
William Baumgart.
Aye.
Kurt O'Brien.
Aye.
Amanda Roddy.
Aye.
Joseph Como.
Aye, passes 9-0. Dr. Siebert, I know you're watching. Congratulations, and we look forward to welcoming you to the school district of Waukesha. I really appreciate all the effort that everyone has put into this. My fellow board members, we put in countless hours, and all the people in the community who helped, and the people that Kurt had mentioned before too. So thank you, everybody. Thank you. Forward to welcoming you, Jim. Moving on to our consent agenda. Darren, do we have any public gifts to report?
Yeah, one gift. Les Paul Middle School received $5,000 from Northwestern Mutual Matching Funds of Paul and Kathleen Oman. This gift is to be used for math, science, and technology integration into the classroom.
Okay, thank you, Darren. Your agenda does include various items for approval. There were no expulsions this past month. Is there any board member that would like to have a piece of the consent agenda set aside for further discussion? Okay, seeing none. Kurt, will you please present the consent agenda?
Well, thank you, Mr. Como. Earlier this evening, the Human Resources and Compensation Committee approved of 7 resignations and 20 teacher contracts. The information was provided in your packet, and an addendum was placed on your desk. I move that the consent agenda be approved as amended.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
Second by Amanda. Discussion? Okay, Sue, please take the roll call vote.
Aye.
Patrick McCaffrey.
Aye.
Greg Dietz.
Aye.
Amanda Roddy.
Aye.
William Baumgart.
Aye.
Diane Boyd.
Aye.
Cory Monteith.
Aye.
Aye, passes 9-0, Sue. Moving on to our superintendent's report. Todd, this is your last one.
I'll make this quick. I just, a lot of it was covered in the earlier, but I want to congratulate all our seniors on their graduation. What a great achievement. I'm just so sorry we couldn't have a normal graduation ceremony this Saturday, but hopefully, if weather and other things hold out, we can do it on July 18th. So good luck to all our seniors and best wishes for your future. I hope that when you leave the district, you're able to do whatever you want in life, whenever you want in life. And then also our staff who really did a fantastic job pulling things together since March 13th. I have teachers in my neighborhood, and I have parents with students in our neighborhood. I know what the challenge was. I heard about it pretty regularly. So, but I mean, it was good. It was good. There were good comments. There were positive comments, and I think we have a new level of respect from parents to teachers from what they do. And of course, you always hear the funny comments about, I had to suspend my student for whatever, for bad behaviors. So there was a little bit of humor mixed in, but I know there was also some very big challenges. And throughout the course of this time, I did hear from some parents who struggled with some things. And certainly that's understandable. This is a new and different time. And it's one of the reasons I really hope we can get back to normal education in our school buildings on September 1st. So with that was it. Congratulations, seniors. Thank you to staff for the work you've done through the end of this year. Yesterday was technically our last day. I think maybe some students probably didn't quite make that day, but many did. And, again, appreciation for everyone for making this work in our district. So.
Thank you, Todd. Moving on to the work of our committees. It's where most of the heavy-duty lifting occurs. And we do rotate which committee starts out. And this month, we're going to begin with the policy presented by Mr. Baumgart.
Thank you. Tonight, we have one action item on the agenda. Policy 6116 has a revision. This is time and effort reporting. These policy revisions will provide language to continue paying federal grant-funded employees through grant funds, even while those employees are not able to carry out the service delivery purposes for which the grant was funded. This is really bringing them into the same kind of a situation as our internally paid employees. It's compensating for that, and I move for approval of this policy 6116 as presented.
Is there a second to that?
I'll second.
Mr. Montiel, discussion? Okay, Sue, please take the roll call vote.
Amanda Roddy.
Aye.
Diane Boyd.
Aye.
Cory Monteith.
Aye.
Kurt O'Brien.
Aye.
Karen Reinacek.
Aye.
Greg Dietz.
Aye.
William Baumgart.
Aye.
Patrick McCaffrey.
Aye.
Joseph Como.
Aye, passes 9-0, Sue.
That's the only action item I had this evening. The next policy committee meeting is scheduled for next Tuesday, the 16th, at 4 p.m. This meeting will be held here at the Lindholm Building in this room. So we're bringing it in starting next week. And I assure you that we have many more policy revisions to talk about.
Got you. So
I think there's at least 15 on the list.
This report was very short compared to what you foresee
Well,
in the future?
in the future, it's going to beef up a little bit, yes.
Thank you, Bill. Moving on to our Technology Committee, given by Diane Voigt.
I don't have an official report. We're hoping to have a meeting sometime in the near future. But one item that I got is information today after helping with the eAchieve graduation. I'd asked about the impact of the COVID enrollment numbers. And Jason was able to get back to me just this afternoon that our enrollment increased by about 80 students during the Safer at Home order, with some being in-district transfers, 30, and the others moving in via alternative open enrollment. So I think that's a number, technology-wise, that would be worth noting. And then he also shared with me the enrollment update. As of the end of May, they had 703 regular open enrollment applications, which is the highest enrollment in 7 years. That was actually 194 more than last year. So I'm pretty excited about the fact that there's definitely a technology impact.
Yes.
That we're feeling from COVID that will impact our bottom line in the school district of Waukesha.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to Finance and Facilities, given by Mr. McCaffrey.
President, I have no action items this evening, but I do have 4 discussion items. Our first discussion item is the monthly budget report. The committee was presented the budget report for the month of February. $541,407 was reported in the general fund revenue, and $8,277,275 was expended during the month. There was $31,225 reported in the special education fund revenue, and $1,906,770 was expended. Revenues and expenditures continued to be within the budget limits for both the general and special education fund. The district is also operating in accordance with our approved budget and all other funds. Our second discussion item was the 2020-21 budget development. The committee reviewed some of the key issues related to funding levels for the district over the next few years. These items include federal stimulus legislation, potential state of Wisconsin budget repair bill, and the district's decreasing revenue limit authority due to continued drops in resident enrollment. In looking at the projections, the greater concern might actually be fiscal year 2021-2022. There are still several factors we need clarification on, but our plan has not changed. We need to conserve as much as we can for the remainder of this fiscal year, maximize federal stimulus money, and maintain fiscal flexibility heading into 2021 school year, including postponing wage adjustment conversations until a more informed decision can be made.
This is a discussion item. So was the last one, so we could toss out anything. Any questions, comments? Okay, Pat?
Great. Our third discussion item is the referendum and maintenance project update. Members of the referendum project team provided an update on the construction schedule, the construction budget, and the district projects being addressed during the shutdown. Due to the school shutdowns, we are currently ahead of schedule in construction, which will lead to a cost savings. We will have more information on the actual cost savings in August. We have also been addressing larger district-managed projects such as roofing, pool decking, and water system upgrades while the staff and students are not in the building.
Yeah, Tim and his team has been taking advantage of this time, working on as many things as possible. It makes sense while the kids are out of school, and Darren continues to push them, right?
There was a couple larger ones. South Pool is probably the best example, where it's so rare that facility is empty or not in use that we really pushed ahead with some projects that probably weren't approved by the board officially in a budget, but I thought everyone would agree that now is the time to move. So we did that. West Boilers would be the other example where we're shutting down essentially the whole facility, but we'll have much better facilities because of the time and energy that went in. Not that it was all worth it, how we got there, but I think it was a good decision.
Right. We would have preferred getting there a different manner, yes. Agree with that. So one of the things that, if you're interested and you're in the audience and you haven't been to our website, there are some fantastic drone videos on what's going on at the locations right now, detailed renderings and descriptions on how you are supporting our schools at this time. So there's a lot going on. I think when people come back in the fall to these locations, they're gonna see the difference. So it's fantastic seeing it come alive. Yes, Darren.
I just wanted to add, I put the PowerPoint for the budget part of the discussion, a copy of it, on your desk tonight, and I'll be emailing out a PDF of the referendum project PDF so you can see. The drone shots are really amazing, and I think the one thing that if you don't go back and watch the F&F tape to think about, and maybe the F&F committee would agree with this, especially at Corning Middle School, where they're taking shots of the construction going on, of the cafeteria and the renovation going on, and them saying, if everything would have been normal, we would have been serving lunch in that cafeteria today. So
Yes.
we really are leaps and bounds ahead at Horning in particular, in Butler. For example, one cost savings we know, we had talked about using Horning's auxiliary gym for temporary classrooms. We're so far ahead of schedule that just one example, we won't need that that space for that. And ultimately, if we're all back in school, which we all want, the impact on the instructional year next year because of construction has been reduced significantly. So a lot of good news, and I'll get that PDF out to you tomorrow.
Thank you, Darren. Any other questions or comments on? Yes, Mr. Ryan.
Well, it's hard to find a silver lining in COVID, but that's the silver lining, right?
Yeah. Okay, Patrick.
Okay. Our fourth and final discussion item is return to facility use date. The committee discussed the cleaning and social distancing protocols provided by Express Swim and Adult Day Services, and determined groups with approved lease agreements be allowed to resume the use of the facilities and grounds immediately, but are required to submit their safety protocols. Other groups are also free to begin requesting space for after July 1st. The WIA oversees high school athletics, so we will follow their guidelines and dates for our own athletic teams.
Any questions or comments on students returning? Some students returning to our facilities, some organizations returning. We're starting slowly here. I don't know if you had a chance to take a look at the plans. The plans were very thorough. Swim Express, I know, has been working diligently, and a few of the other groups have been working very diligently. We're going to ask that any group that wants to get back into our schools put forth what their plan to reopen their program, essentially, and how they are going to work through this. I have been impressed with the plans that have been presented, and I know the Swim Express plan was given essentially a comment of excellence from the Waukesha County Health Department. They're like, this is really good, and they had a couple iterations of it, but people are thinking through this and what this looks like. And again, so a few weeks from now, we'll probably have some information as to how that's working with these various groups. So hopefully that will go smoothly. Any other questions or comments on that? Patrick?
All right. That concludes my report. Our next meeting is July 6th, 5:30 p.m.
Okay, thank you.
Very much.
Thank you. Moving on to teaching and learning, given by Mr. Dietz.
Thank you, Mr. President. The last Teaching and Learning Committee meeting was held on June 2nd, 2020 at 3 p.m. through a virtual session. There was one action item at our June committee meeting that will be brought forward to the July full board meeting in order to meet DPI statute requirements. Therefore, this is a forecast of what I will bring forward for your vote next month. The approval of the School District of Waukesha academic standards must annually include an item on the agenda on or before the first school board meeting of the upcoming school year. There clearly identifies the student academic standards adopted by the school board under section 118.30, parentheses 1G, parentheses A1 of the state statutes. This information is located on the district's homepage along the left-hand side under annual notices, as well as a more detailed matrix under the teaching and learning section of our website. On a 5-0 vote, the Teaching and Learning Committee approved the School District of Waukesha academic standards as presented. I am not requesting board approval for this until our July board meeting. Therefore, I will move on to our 2 discussion information items that appear on your agenda this evening. The first discussion information item was the Whittier Achievement Gap Reduction Grant Update. One of the requirements of the Achievement Gap Reduction Grant is to present twice a year on how the grant is being utilized. Brandy Hart, the principal at Whittier Elementary School, presented the information about the grant to the Teaching and Learning Committee. She shared out that the strategy chosen to reduce the achievement gap, which is small class sizes, 18 students or less in kindergarten through 3rd. Since there were no spring assessments for students across our state, part of the process of measuring learning will be to administer beginning of the year assessments as students return in the fall. Any discussion or questions, comments on that? Okay. Second discussion information item was the virtual learning survey update. The School District of Waukesha initiated an educator and family survey to help monitor the effectiveness of our virtual learning implementation. The results will be used to help inform our efforts during these unprecedented times. Jody Landish, Assistant Superintendent for Teaching and Learning, gave the board an update on the feedback thus far from each of these stakeholder groups. We also have deployed a student survey, and that feedback will be forthcoming. Each school has specific feedback that allows their principals to respond to suggestions that directly impact their related schools. Discussion or comments on that?
Just, Jody, just real quick, if you could maybe, we're still gathering information, we're still trying to analyze this. Could you maybe give us a few takeaways of what we know so far, what we've learned so far?
Sure, I'd be happy to do that, Mr. Como. I think to echo Mr. O'Brien's comments earlier, happy with how we responded and perhaps is not the best or optimal learning environment. Side that although not ideal, everyone has worked together to make it work. Our student feedback is coming in; it's trickling in now. We gave that a little bit later than the parents and the educator feedback. And I will say the same thing. Say that the virtual learning environment is absolutely not for them. And I felt sad, truly, reading some of the comments that just kids say, this is not the mode in which I learn well, and I am not doing well. So that tears at your heartstrings when you read that and see that. But as Mr. Deeds mentioned, we have pared down the results so that school-specific best way with that school-specific information. So the survey results that I presented last week, 1,000-foot view of what our parents say. Also, sometimes when you ask surveys, 50% love what you're doing and 50% do not, find what you're doing optimal. So we'll continue to seek feedback throughout the summer. As Dr. Gray mentioned and Ms. Roddy suggested, probably July will be when we start to send some of those surveys asking questions about transportation, right? If busing is not available, you have a way to transport your children to school. If we were to go back face-to-face now, are you comfortable with sending your child to school? We'll be asking employees that same
thing. So we have a lot ahead of us in terms of engaging stakeholders in the community. I want to say I'm very proud of the responsiveness of our community members so far, so I appreciate them continuing to engage in the feedback because we're using it as we continue to make decisions that work best for everyone.
Thank you, Ms. Landish. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Amanda.
Yes, thank you. Were those surveys still open? I thought I'd heard that.
Yep.
Tina, okay.
Yes, they're not closed, so they can certainly access those.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. That concludes the Teaching and Learning Committee report for this evening. Our next meeting will be held on Tuesday, September 1st, 2020, here in the boardroom.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to safety and security, given by Ms. Reincheck.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have no information tonight. We did not meet, but our last meeting we went over a lot. So if you need to see that, you can go back and watch that one.
That's worth rewatching, right?
Yeah.
A lot in there. Moving on to Human Resources and Compensation Committee, given by Mr. O'Brien.
Yeah, Mr. President, you know, what we do at HR stays in HR, so I don't have any report tonight.
It's a secret? Thank you, Kurt. Moving on to our Government Relations Committee, given by Ms. Roddy.
Yes.
Mrs. Roddy.
Thank you. I just wanted to give a quick update to the board and I guess those who are watching with regards to the Government Relations Committee. Real quick, who we are. We are a committee that was established last school year to help foster relationship with the local and the state elected officials in the municipalities that serve the municipalities where the district lies. The committee members are Ms. Reinachek, Ms. Voigt, and myself, and we meet with the superintendent. What we have done over this last year, the School District of Waukesha is part of the consortium of schools known with, is that about 30, 36 different districts? Yep. Okay. I wanted to make sure I had that right. The Southern Wisconsin School Alliance. Our committee member, Diane Voigt, has been our representative there and has attended those meetings on a regular basis. That consortium and those meetings give us information that the other districts are discussing, and we just kind of shared different topics such as fall planning, sharing ideas, as I said, from other districts. WASB representatives and lobbyists attend those meetings, sharing best practices, et cetera. When it comes time for the budget at the state level, the districts are allowed to, to share and give their input to the lobbyists and guidance as they go off and do their jobs. This past March, the committee, along with administration here, hosted an informational lunch with the city, county, and state representatives. They came in and heard from Dr. Gray, Dr. Cook, and Darren here, and sharing information of the district directly to them. What's next for our committee? We will, right now, we're looking to meet as needed. This last year, we just kind of felt out and see how things were moving in the political world and where and how we can best share our voice. We will plan to meet, to report out to the full board on a quarterly basis. So right now, we're middle of the year. We'll come back to you in about 3 months. We would like to continue hosting these legislative luncheons. Also, maybe some listening sessions with staff and students to engage them, kind of be that medium for them. We'd also like to invite the local electeds into our schools directly, not just for the celebrations, but to see the day-to-day things that are happening. And those are just some of the ideas we have now. Our next meeting is not scheduled as of yet. We will get that on a calendar soon and be sharing that out to you. So that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. We only have one other item left for tonight, and that's other business. Any suggestions for future Board of Education meetings, items to be agendized, or items that we would like to toss towards any of the committees? All right, I think we need one last round of applause for Todd Gray. Thank you, Todd, for all you've done.
Property thing?
No.